I think we're getting a Mario RPG remake this year, but which one is it going to be? So going back something like 15 years, there has been some sort of Mario RPG release at least every 2 years. Like go back to, I believe, Sticker Star in 2012, so 14 years, and there will never be more than a 2-year gap without some sort of Mario RPG. Whether it's a remake, original game, Paper Mario, Mario and Luigi. Nintendo's been very consistent, and right now with less than 8 months left in the year, we still don't know about any sort of Mario RPG happening. And in all likelihood, it's not going to be a Mario and Luigi game. We just got Brothership 2 years ago. For Paper Mario, it's interesting to think about, because if you think that the Thousand Year Door remake means we're not going to get one for a few years, then we're not getting a Paper Mario game. But I mean, it has been 6 years since the Origami King. Then there's the Mario and Rabbids series, which has been dormant for a few years now, and I don't know if there's going to be another one of those. But assuming we don't get a new game this year, I think we do get a remake, or I think there's a very good chance, I should say. So I wanted to go over all the different Mario RPGs to see which one could possibly be remade this year. So I'm going to skip Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars because we obviously got a remake a few years ago, and it was a fantastic remake that you should play if you haven't. I think it's even possible we get a sequel to this after the critical reception that this got and how much attention it got, but that's something I can't really predict. Now, starting with Paper Mario 64, I think this is the logical choice for the next remake. They went with A Thousand Year Door because it is obviously a very popular game, the most critically received Paper Mario game. Plus, at the time, there was no GameCube NSO, so you couldn't play this on the Switch. However, with Paper Mario on the N64, you can play it on NSO, so that made a lot of sense, but I would love to see a from the ground up remake of this. I think it's a game that's held up very well, but I would love to see it brought to the Switch or Switch 2, because not only would it introduce this fantastic game to a new generation that's pretty much grown up on Color Splash and the Origami King, and may have not played some of the older games. This is a very different kind of Paper Mario game. So a lot of people just think of it as the prequel to the Thousand Year Door, or the predecessor I should say, but it has just a very different vibe. It has a much more whimsical, more Mario vibe, when the Thousand Year Door strays much farther from what you think of in a Mario game. It has some truly unique locations we've never seen, and I'd love to see something like the Flower Field or Shy Guy's Toy Box just brought into HD. I also think that some of the mechanics can be fixed up. Like the battling is fine here, but you don't really have as much control over the partners. They don't even have their own health. Can't really upgrade them. So just taking some aspects from the Thousand Year Door and using it to improve the original in a remake, that's something I would definitely be interested in. Now the next game on the list is interesting, and I am going to talk about it even though we technically did get a remake. So Superstar Saga got a 3DS remake in 2017, I believe, but it got a 3DS remake in 2017. Not that many people played it because everyone was already onto the Switch at that point. And it actually is a solid remake. So the Bowser's Inside Story remake I have more problems with, but this is actually a really great game. Like, looking past my own nostalgia, I think it does improve on the original. But the issue is, again, that it just didn't really need to happen. Superstar Saga could have really used a Nintendo Switch remake, but it was on the 3DS for some reason, and it looks fine. I'm not the biggest fan of this art style. I actually really prefer the pixel art of the original, and it's kind of just what you would expect from a 3DS remake. I think a Switch remake would obviously be a lot better, but I don't think we need it either. We have Superstar Saga on NSO, and I think it's a game that's aged pretty flawlessly. Like, it has some quirks, it has some GBA era quirks, but if you want to get past that, you can spend like, what, 30, 40 bucks to get it on the 3DS. So it would be cool, but I don't think it's something we really need. I think if anything, if they just made a collection of this and the Bowser's Inside Story remake while actually fixing the issues in that game, I think that's something I would definitely be interested in, but I don't think we need a full from the ground up remake. Now the Thousand Year Door, obviously we got the remake a couple of years ago. Partners in Time. So after the Superstar Saga remake, when they made Bowser's Inside Story, a lot of people, including myself, were just very confused why they skipped this. And actually, I think confused is the wrong word because I understand why. So I'd say more disappointed because I love Partners in Time. Bowser's Inside Story is a much more popular game, both critically and commercially. So it makes sense they wanted to remake Bowser's Inside Story over Partners in Time. So as of now, Partners in Time is only playable on a DS and 3DS. And the 3DS is becoming more and more difficult to get, especially with prices going up. And Partners in Time is a game I feel is just overhated by a lot of people. It's one of my favorites. But I also can acknowledge that there's flaws. It is very linear, and a remake probably wouldn't fix that much. There's items instead of the normal bros attacks, which I think is something that could be fixed because I definitely prefer the bros attack. And this game doesn't utilize the touchscreen that much. Like, yeah, you have the two screens with the map on one of them, but I feel like if they wanted to remake this on Switch, I would be more open for that just because it's not a game you could actually play on Switch, and it's not a game that has ever gotten a remake. With that being said, I highly doubt we ever get a remake of this, or any sort of port unless they make a collection or they make DSNSO. Now, Super Paper Mario, one of my favorite games of all time, something that I pretty much built my channel around just talking about Super Paper Mario, which is why it's so popular here. Like if you go to any of my Mario RPG videos, you'll see a lot of people talking about Super Paper Mario, just because one of the things I think my channel is known for is just loving Super Paper Mario. So I would love a remake of this game. I don't think that this will be the game that's remade, but I think there's so much they could do with it. The visuals actually look fantastic. I don't think there's much they can do with that. Obviously, just have better textures, have a higher resolution, but just make this game more difficult. That was my biggest problem with the original. It's just a very easy game. Another thing is add more into the 3D areas. If it's a remaster, they wouldn't do that, but a remake could do a lot to actually flesh out the 3D areas, like make it a lot more different, have better puzzles. Now that might be asking for too much because the Thousand Year Door remake was a very similar remake. It kind of just fixed some of the quality of life issues, like made backtracking better. So I'm not exactly sure what they would do with Super Paper Mario. And this game is not playable on the Switch. If you have a Wii U or Wii, you could play it. Unfortunately, there is no Wii NSO. And this is a game I think people need to try. It's very different from literally any other Mario game ever made. Very different from any other video game ever made, if you really think about it. And this has inspired a lot of games. I've seen a lot of people say that this inspired Omori. I've seen people even say that Undertale took inspiration from this. But come on, Nintendo, give us a way to play this on Switch. Also, I just want to interrupt to say, I know a lot of people have a problem with remake culture. And on one hand, I agree. I think there's games that are being remade that don't need to be remade. And I don't like when it takes away from a brand new experience. But I think if it's given to another team and just done with care, that remakes can be a great thing to either improve an older game, have another way to play it, or just introduce a younger generation to it. Now, I think that value doesn't always add up. I think sometimes there are lazy remakes that companies charge too much. And I'm against that, but I think as a whole, I think that we can appreciate a good remake or talk about games that would benefit from it. So anyway, moving on, Bowser's Inside Story. So like with Superstar Saga, it came out after the Switch, but this came out in 2019, 2 years after the Nintendo Switch, and it made it one of the worst selling Mario games ever when it was initially one of the best selling RPGs ever. Maybe it even was the best selling Mario RPG, I could be wrong, or at least one of them. So one of the biggest issues of this is that the game runs at 30 FPS, which is half the frame rate of the original, which just does not really make sense. The balancing feels off, the hard mode is removed. There's just a bunch of things that feel off here. The art style I prefer in the original. I don't think it's a bad game. I think if you play this instead of the original, you're still getting a good experience, but I definitely do think the original is better. I don't think this needs a remake. I think if they made some sort of collection where you have Superstar Saga and Bowser's Inside Story, the original, and then the remakes of those, and then just made a collection on Switch of those, that's something I think would be pretty cool, just to give people those options. And especially since these games are not playable on Switch. I don't want to say single-handedly bankrupted Alpha Dream, but it's pretty close to that. Just a complete disaster, but obviously there's a much bigger install base on the Switch. Paper Mario Sticker Star, no, this game doesn't need a remake. It plays perfectly fine on the 3DS, it's just not a very good game in my opinion. I don't really think there's much a remake could do to improve this. I think if they wanted to just have actual XP or something, maybe that would make it better, but that's just fundamentally changing the game. The levels themselves aren't really too fun. I think Nintendo's leaving this in the past, so for those of you who are Sticker Star fans, you're probably less likely to get this than Super Paper Mario, which is already, like, less than a percentage point. But anyway, let's move on to Mario & Luigi Dream Team. So another game that plays perfectly fine. It has some issues, especially with the tutorial. Now, the ability to skip all that would be great, but like the two games that came before it, it uses two screens, so Nintendo would have to change up the game. And I don't think it would be that difficult of a task. But you know what? I'd be open to a remake of this. This game has only ever been playable on the 3DS, never got a remake. And it's one of those games, kind of like Partners in Time, where it's a very good game, but it just has some questionable design choices. So it's a game I would enjoy getting a remake of, kind of like with the same reasons with Partners in Time, but I think Dream Team is just more popular overall, so I think that's more likely. If I had to pick any Mario & Luigi game I think is most likely to get a remake now, it would probably be Dream Team. But again, if you have a 3DS, perfectly fine to play that if you just get past the tutorial. Now is Puzzles & Dragons Mario Edition. Yeah, I think that answers itself. I actually have this game. It's fun for what it is. Not something I think we're ever going to see ported again, unless it's like 3DS NSO and Nintendo remembers this exists. Paper Jam, I mean, the last Mario & Luigi game for 8 years. Not a very good game. Some people do like it, but it's basically the Sticker Star of the Mario & Luigi series. I don't think it sold that well, and it was such a creative idea. It was such a great idea to combine these two worlds, so I was really looking forward to this. This was actually one of the first games when I started my channel that I talked about. I don't know if the videos are still public, but it was a game I was really looking forward to. I was hoping they were going to bring back some of the Paper Mario characters, but they literally just brought back like Bowser, Peach, Mario, Luigi, Koopa Troopas, Toads. Just all the basic ones. Another game I just don't think we're getting a remake of, and I don't think we need a remake of. And then finally, I want to talk about Color Splash, since it doesn't really make any sense to talk about any of the Switch games. Kind of just like with Sticker Star. Yes, it's trapped on the Wii U, but I just don't know why Nintendo would pour resources into remaking this, or honestly even porting it. It sold very poorly, was not a critically acclaimed game, and just had a lot of the same issues as Sticker Star. I think in all likelihood, we won't see this again until there's Wii U, Nintendo Switch 3 online, whenever they add that. This is a game that is worth playing if you are a Paper Mario fan, just because I think there are things to like about it. I think it is a better game than Sticker Star. At least since it is a Wii U game, it's not going to be as accessible by as many people. There's a lot less copies than something like Sticker Star, which actually sold pretty well. So anyway, out of all these games, which ones do I think is the most likely to be remade? I would say 100% Paper Mario 64. They already did the 1,000-Year Door. A lot of people bought it. It had great critical reception. So I think that's the logical step. They saw that worked, and they'll probably remake this at some point. I know it is on NSO, so that is the one thing that makes me question it. Then after that, I would say probably Dream Team. Following that, I'd say maybe like a collection of the DS games, which maybe wouldn't even be a remake. Maybe they would do my idea where they have the remakes and the originals. Super Paper Mario, I don't think is the least likely, but unfortunately, I don't think that will be the one they remake. But let me know, what games do you think need a remake? What games do you think are the most likely to get remade? Do you think we're going to get a brand new Mario RPG this year? Let me know in the comments, and be sure to subscribe.